The NFL regular season for 2023 is done. And I am excited that the playoffs are starting in a couple days. I am excited for the tournament. This is why I love sports. It's why I love the NFL. Because I know I've said it before on the channel. I had to have. It is a giant tournament arc. And the 18 weeks of the regular season is all the shit to get to the tournament. And so you start getting invested in teams and coaches and players and their stories and how the fans are reacting to their stories. But then characters start getting eliminated until you have, I guess, essentially the main characters left. And then they get to go at it round by round until we have a champion. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's exciting. And the Saints can't ruin my Sunday until September. It's a wondrous, glorious feeling. What I wanted to do in this video is not pick the playoff games. I do want to do that. I'll probably try to do that. What's today? Today's Friday. No, today's Thursday because I haven't done the Thursday video yet. So I'll probably try to do that tomorrow. Here's my picks. Here's what I think is going to happen in the first round. I'll probably just here's my first round predictions. Here is how I see the playoffs going. We'll see how I do with that overall. And then as people get eliminated, it's like, all right, well, this is what I think is going to happen this week, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What I want to do now is go division by division, team by team. Just kind of look over what were the major storylines for these teams and how did they play out. Starting with the NFC North, I'm going to go NFC, AFC, North, South, East, West. And then champion, second place, third place, basement. Yeah, so everyone gets he knows. Starting with the Detroit Lions. The big storyline from my perspective on the Lions this season is how good are they? And even if they are good, does it matter? Because they're the Lions. Last year, they missed the playoffs by one game. It really felt like it was that Seattle game. But they ended the season by sticking it to Green Bay, knocking Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay. And it felt like a moment of saying, even if we did not make the playoffs this year, we are a good team. We are going to be here for a while. This is our coming out party. And the NFL responded to that by giving them the first game of the year. Kansas City is the Super Bowl champ. We have to have a good, exciting matchup for them. Do we want it to be a divisional game like against Justin Herbert? A rematch against the Bengals? Wouldn't be a rematch. They didn't play the Bills this year, but like a classic Kansas City Buffalo battle that we've seen these past few years. The Super Bowl rematch of them versus the Eagles. How do we want to open the season? Let's give it to the Lions. And the Lions showed up. The Lions won that game, and it felt like this, like the end of last year, we were announcing our arrival. Here we are staking our claim. We are marking our territory. But even then, people weren't sure what to think of it. Yeah, you beat the Chiefs. Chris Jones didn't play. Does it really count? Travis Kelce didn't play. Does it really count? Yeah, you won. It's because the Chiefs receivers couldn't catch balls. I don't like how I phrase that. They couldn't catch passes. There were drops everywhere. If Kansas City was playing with their full deck and their guys had actual hands instead of butterfingers, you would have lost. So how good are you really? There were times this season where the Lions looked really good. They also got their shit kicked in by the Ravens, and it was like, well, there they are, same old Lions. They beat the Bears in a game. Like, there was this wild 4-game stretch where they went 2-2 and somehow kind of proved their doubters right for a while. You beat the Bears. Good shit. A win is a win. The Bears were also not very good for most of this year. And you barely beat, no pun intended, but like you barely beat them. You kind of needed, not quite like a miracle play. You needed a lot to seemingly go in your favor to win that game. Then you followed it up with a classic of losing a Thanksgiving game to the Packers, a team you had kind of thoroughly trounced earlier in the year. The Packers made it look closer, but it was a 24-point game at halftime, if I remember correctly. Like, the Lions ran away with it. You lost to that team. Then you barely beat the Saints, who you were kicking their asses, and then they almost came back. You almost choked. Good job that you didn't. Which, I mean, if that's not the story of the Saints' year, it's just almost, but not quite. Just, That's not towards Detroit. That's towards the Saints. That's towards Dennis Allen. And then the week after, they actually lost to the Bears. 2-2, but the two losses seemed to confirm people's doubts, and the 2 wins didn't exactly assuage the fears either. But lo and behold, at the end of the season, the Lions are division champs. For the first time, I think in 30 years, I've heard they've never won the NFC North. Good shit. I'm happy to see it. I've said it before. I love Dan Campbell. Like, the Saints are my team. I have a soft spot for the Lions. I feel like most people that I talk to where you're talking about football, unless you are a diehard NFC North fan, which, hey, if that's your team, that's your team. Unless you're one of them and so you hate the Lions by default, people tend to usually have a soft spot for the Lions and see them want to do well. The question, of course, is like, all right, you were good, but how good are you? How is it going to translate into the playoffs? We'll see. But if the big storyline was, can the Lions actually win? Can they actually be successful? I would say that was a resounding yes. And then the next team in the NFC North, the Green Bay Packers. The big storyline for them was life after Aaron Rodgers. He's been your quarterback a long fucking time. You drafted Jordan Love while Aaron Rodgers was, I guess, still in his prime. He won, 2 back-to-back MVPs? What was it, 2 or 3 NFC championships, 2 or 3 straight 1 seeds? You used a first-round pick to draft the successor of the dude who was still balling out instead of using that to bolster the team. Instead of getting an elite defender to stop the run. Because I think they drafted him after that 49ers game where Raheem Mostert just ran all over the fucking Packers defense. You didn't get someone to bolster the defense. You didn't get another receiver or tight end to complement Devontae Adams. He better be worth it. Now, I feel like it's hard to tell if Jordan Love was quote-unquote worth it. Because again, maybe if you would use that pick on another player who could help you now instead of in the future, maybe the Packers, again, I mean, it wouldn't have helped against the 49ers, but maybe against the Bucks. Actually, it would have helped against the 49ers, just not that season. What was it, like a 13-10 game against that weird, I had to twang there. That weird fucking game against Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers. Maybe that first-round player could have helped there. Maybe could have helped against the Bucks. And unless Jordan Love wins a Super Bowl, not necessarily this year, but he wins that Super Bowl like Favre did, like Rodgers did, then you can't really say how worth it he was. But in terms of just what is life without Aaron Rodgers going to look like, is Love going to be good? Like with the Lions, that's a yes. He wasn't always great. There were some shaky games. But I mean, he's only human. Like, that happens to, I've seen Brady have shaky games. I've seen Breeze have shaky games. It happens. He led his teams to the playoffs. I had said when the Packers were 4-6, watch out, the Packers are 4-6. And I meant it unironically, because I remember Aaron Rodgers. They were 4-6, and he's like, I think we can run the table, and they fucking did. They won their remaining 6 games, went 10-6, won the division, won a playoff game, won a second playoff game in Dallas, and then, got their asses kicked by the Falcons. But it's not the first time the Packers have like had a subpar record, not looked great, and gotten their shit together. I believe Aaron Rodgers' first full season as a starter, they went to the playoffs. They lost in the first round. If I remember correct, I think that was his first year, was they lost to the Cardinals, and that epic shootout ended in overtime on a defensive score that shouldn't have counted because Rodgers got his face mask like almost fucking ripped off his face. It's like, yeah, it's a fumble return for a touchdown. That shouldn't count. That one's not on him, man. And then the next year they won the Super Bowl. So if Jordan Love doesn't win this year and then wins the Super Bowl next year, it's like, dude, his Aaron Rodgers arc is already complete. Like, what the fuck? That's crazy. But to me, that was their biggest storyline, and that was how it played out. The Vikings. To me, the Vikings' biggest storyline was, it was kind of two. The first one was just their slow start. They started like 0-3, 0-4. It was something like that. A very slow start for a team that had strong ambitions, and then their QB carousel. Kirk Cousins, even though they were losing, dude was balling out. Tore his Achilles. Josh Dobbs had his few games where, like, his Linsanity run, of course, against the Saints. Not against Josh Dobbs. But, yeah, Josh Dobbs, that didn't work. Nick Mullins had a couple games where he was kind of balling. I remember that Lions game, the first one, where he had like 400 yards, 4 touchdowns or some shit, but he had 4 picks, including the game loser. Like, there was him. I think there was like another dude or two whose names I can't remember, but they just, after Cousins, there was no stability at the quarterback position, and that in addition to the slow start is what doomed them. I remember the super early part of the year, it's like every time they fumble in a game, they lose. That I thought was going to be their story, and then it broke. I think it was against Kansas City. It was a game that they didn't fumble, but they lost. And I was like, oh, I guess this is done. And then all the crazy quarterback shit ended up happening. And then with the Bears, to me, the biggest storyline, was just how fucking terrible they were at the start of the year. I remember when they were going to play the Broncos, like, this might be the worst played game of football of all time. And it wasn't. It was actually like a competitive, fun game. There was some good shit on defense. There was some fun shit on offense. Like, oh, what do you know? What do you know? The biggest question, or the biggest storyline is, because they own the Panthers pick, and the Panthers are dog shit, are the Bears going to end up with the number 1 overall pick? And with how bad they are right now, are they going to end up with the 2 top overall picks? Which they did not, but they did have the Panthers. And then kind of the 1A, or I guess the 1B to that is like, okay, since they have the number 1 overall pick, what do you do with Fields? Because last year, had the number 1 overall pick, like, we want to keep Justin Fields. We don't believe that strongly in Young. We don't believe that strongly in Stroud. What about this year with Caleb Williams? I'll be honest, I don't tend to watch a lot of college football. Congrats to the Michigan Wolverines, by the way. That happened on Monday, winning the national championship. Nick Saban just fucking stepped away from Alabama. I did not expect that. I did not hear anything about him possibly retiring. Dude just fucking dipped. It's not a quite writing off into the sunset because he didn't win a title this year, but what a fucking career, man. Just all the props to him. And like, we'll talk about Belichick. I'm glad I waited to do this video because the Belichick shit happened today. But I've heard that Caleb Williams is the next big thing. And if that's the case, what do you do if you're the Bears? Do you take him and trade Justin? Oh, sorry, real quick. I think the dog needs to come in. Is that you, princess? Hello, dog. Okay. Do you trade Justin Fields and keep Caleb Williams? Do you trade the number 1 overall pick and keep Justin Fields and trade down and try to get assets? Do you use the number 1 overall pick on another player? like Marvin Harrison Jr. and give Justin Fields an additional weapons in addition to DJ Moore. I don't know. It's interesting. Like, the Bears' biggest storyline is not one that's fully resolved yet. I'm going to be honest. What kind of scares me is Justin Fields going to the Falcons. Because, like, the way he can play quarterback with all the weapons they have in it, like with Justin Fields and Bijan, like, if you have a good offensive-minded coach, the RPO they could run there is fucking insane. And I really don't want to have to deal with that. But I'm really, really interested to know what is going to happen with the Bears. If they trade Fields, where is he going? If they trade the number 1 overall pick, who's going to get it? There's a part of me that goes like, are the Patriots really going to get Caleb Williams? Belichick's not going to be there for it, but that could be interesting. That could be their next dynasty. But that's the, oh, sorry, those are the, I'm so sorry. I'm not supposed to scratch you there. NFC South. For the Bucs, the big question was life after Tom Brady. How is that going to look? Because the Bucs were dog shit for a long time. Brady came in, put a lot of energy. He's revitalized that team, that club, culminating in a championship in his first year there. Now that he's gone, what happens? Do they fade back into obscurity or do they stay relevant? The answer was kind of both at the same time. Like, the whole division, including my Saints, were fucking terrible. So, I mean, they still had a winning record by the end of the year. I want to take that away from them. But they were not good for a lot of the year. They looked really bad. So it did kind of seem like, yeah, they're just not that good. They are more obscure. They are kind of going to fade away. But at the same time, they still have a playoff spot. With how shit the Eagles look right now, because they look fucking terrible. The Bucs might win that game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucs were favored to win that game. So life after Brady, it might be a little shaky. They might not be, quite as relevant as they were then. But the future looks pretty decently bright. Something I can't say about the next team, my Saints. The storyline for me this year was the missed opportunities. The so close, but yet so far. Up 17-0 against the Packers at the start of the fourth quarter, lost the game by a point. Playing the Texans, losing for a lot of the game, not getting your asses kicked, but getting down, and then just chance after chance after chance in the red zone, and you can't capitalize. Getting your asses kicked by the Jaguars, coming back, not able to win. Same shit against the Lions. Against the Vikings, against the Rams. Week after week, game after game. I remember when the Chargers fired Brandon Staley. What they had said in their post, it was something along the lines of, like, we love Brandon. I don't remember the name of the GM they fired. I apologize for that. But it's like, we love Brandon. We love our GM. We love what they brought to us here, but we think it's time to move on. We don't like the idea of accepting continuity when we feel like there should be bigger changes. Like, if we don't like the direction we're heading in, we can't preach continuity anymore. We have to make a change. I remember looking at that and thinking, Saints, like, the ball's in your court now. And it's not that I was like, man, DA has to go. He has to be fired. It was just I'm not vibing with it, man. The whole thing last year in a terrible division is it never came across as we need to be better because we should be better. we are a great team. We have strong aspirations beyond just the division. We need to be better to meet them. It was, hey, we're right where we want to be. We're in like first place or second place in the divisions. Like, yeah, but if the whole division is terrible and mediocre, if you're right there with them, that means you're terrible or mediocre. That doesn't inspire confidence. What are you doing? This year is more of the same. It wasn't until after the Falcons game, after running up the score on the Falcons, and like I said, I made a video about it, that's your rival. You run up the score on your rival. You embarrass your rival. You want to grind them into the dust. And I want them to feel the exact same way about us. If they're kicking our asses, I don't want them to stop. Because A, that's our job, is to make them stop, either by scoring enough points to keep up with them, or the defense fucking stopping them. And 2, I don't want them to go, hey, we're winning by 30 with 2 minutes left. It would look bad if we beat them any worse, so let's just stop. I don't want your pity. I don't want your condescension. Fuck you. Play for 60 minutes. Like, against your rival, do it. Apologizing to the Falcons. That's a fireable offense as a Saints head coach. Throwing your players under the bus is a fireable offense for any coach. And publicly acknowledging that you have lost the locker room, that players asked you to do something, you said no, and they did it anyway, shows they don't respect you. What dirt does Dennis Allen have on GM Licky Loomis or owner Cale Benson? Because you do not protect a coach like that after that fucking showing. This season's theme and storyline were the missed opportunities, and to me, keeping Dennis Allen is another missed opportunity. Vrabel is available. Belichick is now available. The Falcons, what was their storyline this year? Offensive ineptitude. It's Desmond Ritter's crucial turnovers, frequently in the red zone. It is the mismanagement of London, Robinson, Pitts, like all these really fucking good players. I think it was last year is when Arthur Smith said, like, I'm not trying to win fantasy football, I'm trying to win regular football. And granted, if you're successful, you can say that shit. Remember Jonas Gray? Does anyone remember that? The dude who I think started 1, maybe 2 games for the Patriots, and then like 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then was late to a meeting, so he never saw the field again. Belichick is not trying to win fantasy. He's trying to win real games. And he was really successful at doing that for a long time. You know how you win games? You give your players, like, opportunities with the ball, man. What is this shit? It was just a mess. As much as I shit on the Falcons, as much as I talk about, like, I want to grind them into dust, because I do. I want them to be good, because it's more satisfying to beat your rival when they're good, because that means we're better. When they have genuine talent and are utilizing it, they're not playing with a hand behind their back, either because they're going easy on you or because they're being incompetent. You bring out the best in each other. I want the Falcons to be a good team, so then when we beat them 41 or 48-17, it's even more impressive. I know I said, I was like, I don't want them to have Justin Fields, because like with a smart coach and that team, that talent, that could maybe be something scary. I don't want Belichick to go there because he knows how to win football games. Like, that might be kind of fucking scary. But if they have a coach that knows what he's doing, a quarterback that is in an offense that can maximize not only his talents, but the talents of those around him, and we're still shellacking them. That's beautiful. That's amazing. As for the Panthers, their season storyline is just one of failure. Actually, what was the word I wrote down? Was it failure? No, yeah, it was. I was like, was there something else I said? No, that's it. It's failure, but also just, you know what it is? It's bleak. Because it's not just, we had a bad season, we missed our opportunities, like players were injured or anything. Because I feel like that's the Jets. The Panthers is bleak. Your coach was fired in the middle of the season, and it is the second time in 2 years the owner has done that. Who the fuck wants to coach the Panthers right now? You know you have the shortest leash in the NFL given David Tepper. And honestly, I feel like David Temper is probably a better name for him with that. And then like throwing fucking, I don't even know what the drink was, but throwing a drink on a fan. You had a team that traded a bunch of assets for a quarterback. So you don't have a first round pick this year. So you can't bolster the team. I mean, there's still other picks in some free agency, but the team did not look good. Bryce Young did not look good. I don't know if that's because Bryce Young is not very good. I don't know if that's because his coaching wasn't very good. I don't know if that's because the supporting cast wasn't very good. I don't think those are mutually exclusive. He can get better. His coaching can get better. His supporting cast can get better. But with David Temper at the helm and no first round pick and a team that just did not compete. They scored 0 points in 2 straight games. That's so bad. That's like a work of art. It's beautiful. Like, as a Saints fan, I love it. But it's so bad. I have no idea who they're going to get as a coach. I feel like whoever coaches the Panthers is either a phenomenal coach who wants a challenge, who like really believes in Bryce Young, or it's going to be someone who doesn't have other opportunities and like this. Look, I want to be a head coach. No one else has taken me. No one's coming to you. Let's do this, David. I don't envy them. There's the Saints fan in me that's like, I don't pity them either. I'm like, I think I pity them. If they can turn it around, they will have my respect and probably my ire. But definitely my respect. What a fucking mess. NFC East. To me, Dallas has had 2.5 storylines. I say the half because we haven't really gotten to it yet because it's a playoff storyline. Storyline number 1 is home versus away. They've been great at home. They have not been very good away. And in the playoffs, they're the 2 seed. So, assuming they win, which, I mean, you can argue how big of an assumption that is. Like, I think they'll beat Green Bay at least. They will have likely 2 home playoff games. And if they actually make it to the NFC Championship, kind of a 50-50 chance. If the 49ers win, you're on the road. If not, you'll host whoever. That was a big storyline. Another big storyline for a good chunk of the season was their record against winning opponents. It was really bad, and then they fixed it. Like, they got shellacked by the 49ers. They lost to the Eagles. I think that was it for a lot of the season because most of the other teams they were playing were just not very good. But then they beat the Seahawks, which, I guess everything being fair, the Seahawks had a winning record at the time. But after the loss, that sent the Seahawks down to 500. But then at the end of the year, the Seahawks had a winning record. I genuinely don't remember their game against the game against the Rams, like they kicked their asses and the Rams ended with a winning record. I don't think they had one at the time, so I feel like I should give Dallas that. They did lose to the Dolphins, but then beat the shit out of the Eagles. Controversial win against the Lions and the whole ineligible receiver shit. That's kind of fucking bullshit. Probably wouldn't have gotten to that point if tripping was called on the right person. So it's like, and I mean, after that, I think Dan Campbell should have just taken the extra point, but he didn't. I feel like that loss is also on the Lions. Don't get me wrong, they got fucked. Dallas got fucked on their earlier drive as well, all things being fair. So they're home versus away. It's like that was a problem, but in the playoffs, that might not be much of a problem when you're the 2 seed. Record versus winning opponents, it was a problem. Then they kind of fixed it. The other storyline, which I haven't really seen yet, what are they going to do in the playoffs? Because you haven't been in the NFC Championship in, 25, 26 years? I kept hearing the curse is broken. Jimmy Johnson is now in the Ring of Honor. Maybe that'll undo everything. Maybe it won't. I will say this. I think if Mike McCarthy does not make it to the NFC Championship, he's getting fired. I really do. Barring some, wild, monumental bullshit that happens in the game that is clearly not the fault of the coach, I think he's fired. I think if the Cowboys get embarrassed, even if they make it to the NFC Championship, if they get embarrassed by the 49ers or another lower seeded team that beat the 49ers, I guess, I think he gets fired. I think if they play the Eagles in the play, could you imagine Cowboys Eagles NFC Championship? The ratings that is going to get, that would be insane. But I think if they play the Eagles in the playoffs and lose, McCarthy's getting fired. I don't think Jerry Jones has a lot of patience left. Especially if he's I can hire Belichick. Which, granted, you can always make the argument that would Belichick go and work for Jerry Jones because, Belichick wants a lot of autonomy and Jerry Jones also wants to have his hand in the cookie jar. I don't know, but if Jerry can be just win for me, I don't care, which maybe he could, maybe Belichick could maybe end up in Dallas. I don't know. I don't think that's an impossibility. I don't know if it's likely, but I don't think there's a non-zero chance to me. And then we move on to the Eagles. To me, the Eagles, their storyline is actually really consistent this year. Because early in the year, they were winning, but everyone knew something was off. Which, granted, you lost your OC and your DC. But they seemed shaky. It was you're winning consistently. You don't look as good. You don't look as dominant. You don't look as tight, disciplined. I don't know. You're letting teams hang around a lot. You're having to make comebacks. Which granted, teams are going to do that shit. It's not oh man, you went to, again, last year, the Chiefs lost to the Colts and won the Super Bowl. They went to overtime with the Texans. Shit happens. Shit happens. But everyone could kind of knew the Eagles don't look right. They'll probably fix it. We believe they can fix it. And as the year got on, it just got worse. Now, there was this chunk where it looked like they were perfectly fine. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Chiefs. They had a crazy-ass game against the Bills. Dude, the Eagles are fine. Everything's Gucci. Shellacked by the Niners. Shellacked by the Cowboys. Embarrassed against Drew Lock at the end of the game against the Seahawks. The last 2 weeks of the year, they lost to the Cardinals. And Kyler Murray came back, I get it. But they lost to the Cardinals. They lost to the Giants. And they kind of got their asses kicked by the Giants. The Eagles look kind of broken. The defense can't stop a soul, and the offense can't get anything going. the storyline for the Eagles is the Super Bowl hangover. And they fought it, like they coped with it earlier in the season, and then it looked like they beat it, and then it just came with a vengeance. I genuinely don't know if I can pick them over Tampa Bay. I want to as a Saints fan, but also as a Sooner fan, I'm like, go get him, Baker. But also, I mean, Jalen Hurts was also a Sooner, so I feel like the Sooner fan in me is pretty much happy either way. I'm a little more partial toward Baker, but I love Jalen Hurts. But I'm like, I mean, even then, like, the Bucs did not play well against Carolina. Carolina should have won that game. Like, that game for Carolina was kind of the microcosm of their season. We scored a touchdown! No, he fumbled the ball right before he crossed the goal line. We're about to make a field goal. No, we missed. It was easy, but we missed. Another touchdown! It didn't count. There was a flag, and then we fumbled on the next play, so it doesn't matter. So, I mean, I feel like Tampa kind of sleepwalked through the game, but you were playing Carolina, so you could get away with it. You can't quite get away with that against the Eagles. You shouldn't be able to. Neither team looks like they're at full strength. Boy, man. Super Bowl hangover is real. The Giants, Tommy DeVito, that was the fucking story of their season. The story of the Giants season was this team is fucking hilariously dog shit. What was the first game? It's the Cowboys, 40-0. A big storyline I thought was like the job security of Brian Dable, who it seemed like he saved his job by them being somewhat competent in the middle and end of the season and beating the Eagles, which they didn't get to do last year in 3 attempts. I think he's 0-4 against the Cowboys. I don't think they beat him last year either, but they made a better effort. Daniel Jones didn't play well, and then he was injured. I really don't think he should have gotten that contract. I even thought it at the time. It's like, they should probably be franchise tagged. That's like his one good season. I don't think you guys should have done that. I think you fucked up. Tyrod did Tyrod things, and then got Tyroded because he couldn't play, and then Gabagool DeVito, and that was fun. He was like a folk hero for the Giants for a while, but yeah. I don't really know what else to say about the Giants, man. But if they look at Belichick and go, he did used to coach for us before. He was our DC for a long time. Bill, you want to come back home? Which, granted, Belichick might just say, I don't want to fucking coach for you guys. Your team looks like shit. Which, fair enough, but I feel like that's another one of those, just like that. There's a non-zero chance of that. When it comes to the commies, I mean, I guess it's Dan Snyder not being there, but it has nothing to do with what happened on the field. There was Sam Howell, who at times looked really good, and then just kind of didn't. I started calling it the Sam Howell special, where there was like several games in a row he had a rushing touchdown and a pick six. Ron Rivera looked really checked out for a while. Like, to me, that was the storyline, is just Ron Rivera is a dead man walking. There really isn't much to say. I don't think their season was particularly interesting. They have the number 2 overall pick. Do they pick another receiver? I mean, they've got some good ones. Are they going to pick a quarterback? I mean, I don't know how much they really want to rock with Howell, but Howell doesn't look terrible. Maybe does just need some more time in development, but maybe they're like, we'd rather have that time in development with Caleb Williams if we can get him. Maybe they really like Drake May or Jaden Daniels, Penix. I don't think McCarthy's going to go that high. I'd be shocked if he did. I don't really know what the fuck is going to happen with Washington, man. But this is the NFC West. What was the story of the 49ers? Dominance. Just thorough, absolute dominance, that this is the best team in the league when healthy. Purdy might be MVP. I mean, I don't think anymore after the Ravens game, but Purdy was MVP of the league for a while. CMC was MVP, and Yeah, I did say that right. It just came out sounding weird, but he was the MVP of the league for a while. I think I would still give it to CMC overall. No disrespect to Lamar, but I had them both on my fantasy team. And it's like, yeah, fantasy isn't exactly the same as winning games, but I mean, how dominant the 49ers were, a lot of that was also on McCaffrey. That really just was the storyline. It was like a big part of it was what is going to happen when the 49ers play these other contenders? Beat the shit out of the Cowboys, beat the shit out of the Eagles, beat the shit out of the Seahawks twice, beat the Rams in the one time they played that mattered. Did they play the Packers? I don't know. Who did they play in the NFC North? They played the Vikings. Who was quarterback in that game? Was that Dobbs? Was Kirk in that game? I don't remember. That might have been Cousins' last game, and I don't think it was Dobbs. But that was one of the only games they lost, especially to the NFC. They did get shellacked by the Ravens. But aside from that, when healthy, they were a dominant fucking team. They beat the shit out of Pittsburgh, too, week 1. The storyline of the Rams, to me, it was kind of two. Number 1 was just Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua was great. Set the rookie receptions record, the yardage record, the rookie phenom. I don't know who's offensive player of the year between Puka Nacua and CJ Stroud. You can make, I will not argue with anyone who says Nacua. I will not argue with anyone who says Stroud. The other storyline was just 2 years ago they won the Super Bowl. Then the year after they looked terrible. Just kind of unengaged, uninterested. McVay might retire, but then McVay came back. The team was healthy. They got Nacua. They're in the playoffs. That's just kind of it. I don't think it's the most compelling. And now the storyline for next week of Matt Stafford going into Detroit for a playoff game and Jared Goff getting to host his old team and his head coach. That's a great story. Like, oh my God, dude. The storylines in the playoffs are insane. We got the Deshaun Watson Bowl with no Deshaun Watson. Depending on how things play out, there is a chance the Ravens could host the Steelers in a game, or they could host the Browns. Joe Flacco could go into Baltimore for a playoff game. That's wild. Tyreek Hill is going into Kansas City for a playoff game. We got the OU Sooner Quarterback Bowl, and neither team really looks that great. A classic Packers fucking Cowboys game with McCarthy now coaching the other side. The script writers went off for the playoffs, and it's just round 1. This is going to be magical. As for the Rams, I feel like Puka Nacua is a really good storyline. That even like kind of their comeback season didn't really feel like that crazy or huge. Again, compared to a team like the Texans. The Seahawks was kind of the opposite. It was a midseason collapse. They looked solid. It looked like they were going to the playoffs. Then they lost to the Rams in that second game. And the 49ers. The Cowboys and the 49ers. That, to me, and then they beat the Eagles right after, but those 4 games is what doomed their season. They only missed the playoffs by 1, so really it's that Rams game that really did them in. But those 4 straight were bad. And Pete Carroll's now gone. Which, that's their storyline for next year. It's like, life without Pete Carroll. I would not mind Pete Carroll in New Orleans. I love Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll's awesome. And then the Cardinals. The Cardinals had kind of a few stories. At first, it was like, okay, this is going to be the worst team in the league. They look like absolute dog shit. Is Kyler even going to come back to play? Are they going to draft Caleb Williams number 1 overall? Because there's no way they don't get the number 1 overall pick. But then the storyline of Josh Dobbs, the Pastronaut, who was kind of having an insanity run, and then he went to the Vikings and had a minor insanity run over there. To me, the constant storyline of the Cardinals is punching above their weight class. Beating the Eagles, beating the Cowboys, being consistently in most, if not all, of their games. They did not die. They did not give up. And a lot of that is to the pew, pew, pew man, Jonathan Gannon. Yes, they did have fire in their gut. Yes, they were fucking killers. I made fun of the dude. I will still make fun of him because I think that shit was fucking hilarious and goofy. But he showed that he can put fire in the guts of his players. He can rally a football team. I'm not a Cardinals fan. I have a friend who is. As just a neutral observer, it's nice to see. I want to see a coach get his team ready to go. You did not see it in the shots of the meeting, but I feel like we mostly saw it on the football field. Then we go to the AFC. The AFC North. What was the Ravens storyline? I like the 49ers. It was their dominance. It was the new look offense. It was the elite defense. It was Lamar Jackson got paid. He got what he wanted. No other team wanted him. How are they going to look? Oh, they looked fantastic. There were parts where I doubted them, and I won't lie. Because the early parts of the year, that was when it's like they've won a few games, they've lost a few games. That Steeler game was really shaky. I know that's not just on Lamar, but like the team looked shaky. I'm like, is this weird, fluky Steeler bullshit? Or are the Ravens just not that good? Oh, they murdered the Lions. Oh, they just murdered the Seahawks. They murdered the 49ers. Okay, I think they're pretty good. Dude, this Ravens team is nasty, man. They can run it. They can throw it. They can defend you. Justin Tucker definitely has lost a step, but he's still an elite fucking kicker. I had said that Buffalo, if they make the playoffs, given how dicey they looked and how their schedule looked, is like, if that team can make it through that schedule and get to the playoffs, they're my pick to win it all. I said it, so I'll still roll with it. But do I really think they can beat the Ravens? This Ravens team is fucking good. What is their final? I think it's 13-4, and half their fucking losses came to the Steelers. We'll talk about it in a second, but next we gotta go to the Browns. What is the Browns storyline this year? Number one, how fucking good and elite the defense is, and number two, their QB carousel. The $200 million man, the XFL MVP, like PJ Walker, the rookie sensation, not really, but the rookie in DTR, I think it's Dorian Thompson-Robertson, and Joe Flacco, who kind of became the main character of the NFL season in the last quarter, who just kind of showed up out of nowhere, came off his couch, and was just playing great. Multiple interceptions a game, multiple touchdowns a game, 300, 400 yards. Amari Cooper at like damn near 300 yards receiving in a game. Dude just casually taking a nap on the bench playing the Jets. This Browns team is good. I'm like, man, I don't want to root for the Browns. They did my boy Baker dirty. The whole Deshaun Watson thing. But I'm like, man, aside from that, I've always had a soft spot for Flacco, man. I kind of like a lot of the players on the Browns, and a Browns-Lions Super Bowl. The 0-16 Bowl. It could happen. Could you imagine the memes and like how funny that, like, just on paper, that game is hilarious. It could fucking happen. And for that to happen, Joe Flacco, more likely than not, will have to play a playoff game in Baltimore against his former team, who he led on a magical playoff run. That is a fucking storyline. Then there's the Steelers. The weird-ass fucking voodoo magic Pittsburgh Steelers. A team who was dog shit on offense, and then they fired their OC, had a 400-yard offensive game, and then went back to being dog shit on offense. A team that had a starting quarterback who was fine, but not great. Then he got injured, and they put in a backup who everyone hated. They hosted not one, not three, but two two-win teams in a row, and lost to both of them. Lost another game right after to a playoff team in the Colts, a team that was in the not in the playoffs now. And then somehow went, oh, we're supposed to be good. We have to have our winning season, and they fucking got it and got a playoff spot anyways. Like I said, the Ravens are the number one team in the AFC, and they beat the Niners head-to-head. They're the number one team in the NFL. And half their losses came to the Steelers. And granted, one of them was just weird Steeler voodoo magic. The other was the Ravens had nothing to play for, so some of their players didn't even play. But what the fuck? If they play each other again, the Steelers probably win. The Ravens are the better team. But against Steeler voodoo magic, it doesn't matter. They have to beat the Bills and Buffalo first, but Steeler voodoo magic, it could happen. And with Buffalo trying to beat themselves in almost every game they play, you know the Steelers will just capitalize on that weird shit. They did it against the Ravens. Dude, it's wild. Like, could you imagine the fucking 7-seeded Steelers winning the Super Bowl? I can. Not because I'm like, dude, this team is so good they can. It's like, because they're so fucking weird that they can. And I almost want it to happen just to see the fucking chaos. Oh gosh, that sounds so funny. Like, I've said it before. They're football YouTubers who are passionate Steelers fans. Chill Adonis and Urinating Tree that I love to watch. I follow them all the time. If the Steelers go on a magical bullshit black magic voodoo playoff run, their videos are going to be glorious. And then we have the Bengals. The Bengals storyline was Joe Burrow. The man got paid. The man got injured and was nursing an injury. And then when he was healthy, the team looked damn near unbeatable. And then he got injured for the rest of the season, and they couldn't finish. They still won quite a few games, like against the Jaguars. They still looked like a good team, but they just couldn't get it finished. That was it. That was their story. Next year's story is probably going to be the health of Joe Burrow. If he is now fully healthy, how is he going to look, and is he going to be able to fulfill that contract, whether they win a Super Bowl or not, which they feel like they can. But also it's going to be like, now that we've paid Joe Burrow, how do we do? Because they're probably not going to be able to keep T. Higgins. So we'll see how that goes for him. The AFC South. The storyline for the Texans, the rookies. A rookie coach, a rookie QB, a rookie defender, 2 rookie receivers. The world's their fucking oyster, man. They are playing with house money, and they are just like, we're going all in every time. We don't give a shit. It has been fun to watch the Texans. If the Saints have beaten them, we'd probably be in the playoffs right now, but that's what it is. It has been fun to follow the Texans. Dare Ogunbowale, a running back kicking a field goal that was genuinely necessary to win a game. And Baker Mayfield on the sideline just going like, that was kind of fucking cool. Like, that was great. I don't have them beating Cleveland. I'll be honest about that, because Cleveland just looks so good. I don't think I'd be surprised if they pull it off. Like, yeah, Cleveland beat the shit out of them a few weeks ago. CJ Stroud wasn't there. Did I say Deshaun Watson earlier? I feel like I did, and if I did, I'm sorry, I fucked that up. But, yeah, CJ Stroud wasn't there. He has nothing to be scared of. I remember he didn't throw a pick until he played the Saints. That was like week 4, week 5. And he throws a pick It gets fumbled, the Texans recover, then they score a touchdown. Like, how the fuck did you throw a pick, like, and not negated by a flag? Like, a genuine counted interception and a touchdown on the same drive. This dude's badass. Talk about voodoo magic. After that, the Jaguars. What's so funny to me about the Jaguars is they had the same season the Titans did last year. Cruised in the early part of the year, locked for the playoffs, easily winning the division. No one in the division is even close. Everyone kind of looks like shit or mid as fuck. But the losses kept piling up. At the end of the year, you're playing the Jaguars / the Titans, winning you're in, and you lost. The only difference is the Titans weren't also playing for a playoff spot. They were just playing to spite you, and they did. The Jags were 8-3 in a genuine contention for the 1 seed. I think they won 1 game after that, and that was against the Panthers. Lost to the Bengals in overtime. Lost to the Ravens. The Titans. Let's see, it'd be 8-3. So it'd be 4 games. The Bucks. I think that's it. They went 1-5 over their last 6 games. I was watching that the Titans game. That last throw by Trevor Lawrence was so bad. Like, it was nowhere near. Granted, a couple throws earlier, like, he had Calvin Ridley. Ridley just dropped it. Like, I think it was it was maybe slightly overthrown. It was like he could have caught that. He probably should have caught that. But that last one was bad. I know Lawrence was banged up in these last few games. But I also remember that Ravens game where, like, there were so many unforced errors. I think it was like they could have scored at halftime, but they fucked it up. Lawrence just drops a ball on a fumble. Interceptions, just... You did this to yourselves. And I feel the same way about the Saints, by the way. But it's like, you did this to yourselves. You have nobody to blame but yourselves. I think the Jags will be better next year. I think they'll probably get their shit a little bit more together next year. But it was just kind of sad to watch. And the opposite of that is the Colts. Colts were great to watch. The Colts were playing with house money. Their storylines, at first it was Jonathan Taylor. Are they keeping him? Are they paying him? Trading him? Cutting him? Then it was Big Tony playing really well, but he couldn't finish a game. Then he got injured, and then it's Minshew Mania, and it is Minshew Mania. They keep fucking winning. Like, they've been the 7th seed all fucking year. Couldn't get it done at the end. It was a drop pass. It was also not a great throw. That's on both of them. It's not necessarily a game winner, because I think they were still down a touchdown. I don't think they were down a field goal. I could be wrong about that. Well, I mean, if they were down a field goal, they probably would have just kicked the fucking field goal at that point. So there's no guarantee that they still win. Yeah, they were down 5, because I think it was like 22 or 23-17. It was something close to that. Then they ended up scoring a safety, but that would have made it a 3-point game. Anyways, point. The storyline of the Colts was, it was Jonathan Taylor, and then it was Anthony Richardson, and then it was, wait, they're actually kind of good. They couldn't quite get it done. But I feel like this is going to be a fun team to watch in the next few years, especially if Big Tony can be healthy. With the Titans, I don't really know what the fuck their storyline was. I'm going to be honest. It's just that they weren't very good. And then at the end, I guess it was kind of revealed at the end, their storyline was the last hurrah for sure for Derrick Henry, because I loved listening to his goodbye. But he was saying goodbye to the team, to the fans, of the organization. I don't think he's retiring, but he's not going back to Tennessee. I don't think Will Levis was quite a big storyline. I did appreciate whenever they wore those Oilers jerseys, though, because like that, I think those look really good. It was Vrabel's last season, ultimately. I'm surprised to see it. Now that Belichick's gone, he probably starts coaching in New England. I would not be surprised at all. I don't really know what else to say about the time. Like, it was Tannehill's last year for sure. Maybe that's what the storyline was. The last two Raw. Tannehill, Henry, Vrabel. Also, D-Hop was here. Oh shit. I've been talking for an hour. Fuck. The AFC East. What was the storyline of the Bills? The storyline of the Bills was them getting in their own way. Allen turnovers, the fumbles, the interceptions, the hero ball, the defense getting injured, and then the defense not being able to stop anybody, the special teams miscues. Tyler Bass was perfect on the year until he wasn't, and I saw him miss some kicks. The fucking thing against the Broncos when, oh my god, they just missed a kick, we won the game. No, you had 12 men on the field, they get to do it again and they win. Against the Eagles, couldn't get that stop in overtime when needed. Had the game-winning touchdown and just didn't do it. They just kind of fucked it up. They tried so hard to lose to Miami. Interceptions, fumble. But Miami was like, here you go. We don't want it either. It was kind of funny to watch. There's the part of me, like I said, is like, dude, with all the weird shit Buffalo had to go through and overcome, they're probably going to the Super Bowl this year. They have a lot of momentum. They've had a lot of adversity, and they've conquered it. There's the other part of me that goes, you serious? This team that's been trying to lose and get eliminated, that barely beat Easton Stick, the team that, again, it's like that was like they in Miami were playing fucking hot potato with the division. The team that choked against the fucking Broncos at the end, that barely beat the Giants, and that was some bullshit. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, the Steelers won't have TJ Watt, but they are going to have Steeler voodoo bullshit magic. If Buffalo can't sleepwalk through the game, I feel like if Buffalo does not take them seriously, Buffalo is losing that game. Then we get Miami. What was the Dolphins' storyline of this season? Their storyline, a lot like the Cowboys, you can't beat winning teams. I think the Cowboys were the only one they beat. They played Buffalo, not once, not thrice, but twice, lost them both. The Eagles beat them. The Cowboys almost beat them. What else did they play? The Ravens kicked, that was another team the Ravens kicked the shit out of. They obliterated the Dolphins. The Dolphins, they didn't have quite the second half collapses. The Jaguars or the Seahawks, they still made the tournament. The Chiefs are super vulnerable. They lost that game. They're not a team I feel that confident in. And yes, they've also had their recent defensive injuries as well to Phillips and to Chubb. Tyreek didn't. That was another storyline. Was Tyreek, can he get his 2K? He didn't because he's also dealing with injuries. I think Mostert didn't play in the last game. Waddle didn't play in the last game. I don't know how healthy they are for next week. I guess this weekend. That is just the storyline of the Dolphins. It's good, but not great. It's kind of like the Lions, except the Lions, it's a lot like the Cowboys, but it's just like, how good is this team? They did beat the Broncos by 50, though, and that was really cool. With the Jets, it was Aaron Rodgers. We went all in the offseason to get the quarterback that we wanted, a guy who was going to revitalize and rejuvenate our team the way that Brady did for the Bucs, the way that Stafford did for the Rams. We are going to do that shit, and there goes the season. That's it. That is the entire story. And then, I mean, like, Zach Wilson and all that shit. It's just it's a lot like the Vikings. Except with the Vikings, Kirk was playing super well, and they were losing, and then he got injured. Here it was, Rodgers didn't even get a chance to play. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. And then for the Patriots, it was Belichick. A little bit of Mac Jones as well. Of like, dude, what the fuck happened to this guy? I know he like regressed last year, but he didn't have an OC. Now it's Bill O'Brien, which isn't the best, but like he has an OC. He's fucking bad. The storyline was Belichick. Is this the last season? And if so, what happens? Will he retire? Will he be fired? Will he be traded? Is it a mutual uncoupling? Where is that term from? I think that's Chris Martin and Gwyneth Paltrow. Was that the mutual uncoupling? I don't think that was Will Smith and Jada. That was just the entanglement. Anyways, point. Is this the last season? And we got our answer today. It is. He is no longer the head coach or GM of the Patriots. Like I said, there's maybe a chance the Giants. I think if Dallas fires McCarthy, I think Jerry Jones are going to try to get Belichick. Maybe he goes to Atlanta. I think he'll go to the Chargers. That's the one that sounds right to me. You have a really good quarterback. You've got some players. Despite having a defensive head coach, defense was the problem. Defense is Belichick's specialty. I think he can shore up that team and give them, I guess, kind of like what Brady did to the Bucs, what Rodgers said, like that is the new juice. That is the rejuvenation, the injection that team really needs as someone like Belichick. Finally, we end in the AFC West. What was the storyline of the Chiefs? Like, off the field, completely, it's Taylor Swift. On the field, it's no one can fucking catch a pass. It's weird because it felt like the storyline of the Chiefs last year is how is life without Tyreek? Turns out it was fine. They won the fucking Super Bowl. This year's storyline is, oh, so life without Tyreek is actually bad. Last year was a mirage because they also had Juju, I guess. Dude, and I mean, like, Kadarius Toney was kind of his own storyline. Mahomes just getting really pissed off became a bit of a storyline, but it's no one can catch, and also Taylor Swift is here. With the Raiders, it was Josh McDaniels. It was, wow, this guy's fucking terrible, which we learned last year. Why did he stay? Hey, Saints, why didn't you do what the fucking Raiders did? It was how fucking bad they looked under McDaniels. How much the team seemed to fucking hate being there with McDaniels. The shit with Chandler Jones. Then Antonio Pierce showed up. And everyone was happy. They were competitive. They won some games. They were smoking cigars. They felt like the Raiders again. And I kind of hope they keep Antonio Pierce. Like, I kind of really liked that vibe, dude. Like, again, I'm not a Raiders fan. Like, my brother is a Raiders fan. So I want to see the Raiders do well, or at least have that Raider energy. And AP brought it. And after McDaniels, I remember, I've said this about Dennis Allen. He's like this black hole of culture and personality. And McDaniels is like that too. It's nice seeing like the big bang of culture and energy that is Antonio Pierce. Also, remember when they signed Jimmy G to be their starting quarterback? And then he just kind of wasn't partway through the year? Yeah, that shit was fucking weird. Actually, I wonder if Belichick goes to the Falcons, they will get Jimmy Garoppolo to be their starting quarterback. Not if he goes to the Chargers, because Justin Herbert. If he goes somewhere without an established quarterback, like if he goes to Washington, the Giants, Atlanta, I think he will try to get Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe he'll just go to the Raiders for it. I don't know. But again, like, there's a part of me that kind of hopes he goes to the Raiders because then he's working for Tom Brady and just how kind of funny that is. After that, it's the Broncos. The Broncos storyline was just their weird... It's the Russell Wilson shit at the end of the season for sure, and how weird that is, and how I think that just reflects poorly on the Broncos as an organization, man. That shit's fucking awful. But a lot of their storyline was how fucking terrible they looked, And then, like, wait a second, they're, like, really good now and might make the playoffs? Even though they got embarrassed by 50, they've put it, like, turned it around. They've got it together. Never mind. It was a Sean Payton 7-9 Saints season. Terrible at the start. Go into a run where you win, like, 6-7, 5-6. You're starting to get back on track. You can maybe make the playoffs. You're maybe competing for a wild card, maybe kind of in the division. Never mind. I've seen that shit before, man. It's the ride never ends. And finally, the Chargers. It was kind of like the Vikings. It was their really slow start. Unlike the Vikings, I don't think I've ever heard Kevin O'Connell's job called into question for a season with Staley. It was called into question at the playoff game last year. It was called into question at that Raiders game the year before that. It was in question all fucking year. And then after the embarrassment against the Raiders, I remember even saying after, I was like, you can't, if you have any pride as an organization, he can't be your coach tomorrow. The Raiders were shut out, and then they dropped 60 on you. You can't do that. I know not all their points were on offense. They scored some on defense. Your coach is a defensive guy, and his defense is fucking terrible. This has to stop. And it did. I do think they get Belichick. I do think that's probably their priority number one. But I would say that, to me, those were the storylines this season. Like I said, there's some fun ones going into the playoffs. I am excited for playoffs to start. I am itching for playoffs to start. I think we're going to have a good time.